If you think coffee table books are fussy or unnecessary, we're here to set you straight.
When I go to someone's house, the first thing I do is casually meander my way over to their bookshelves. I love looking at how people collect books and what they display and what they buy. I just think it's fascinating. I love seeing what it says about someone and what someone's into. So we decided turnaround is fair play, so we would let you in on some of the things that we're collecting recently and the things that we love in different categories. So we're starting a little bit of a series. So we thought we'd start with coffee table books, because I think it's one of those things that maybe is a little antiquated, or people don't think is for them, or that they can buy, or maybe they live in an apartment and you don't want to fill your books, or it feels expensive or fussy or whatever. But I highly disagree, and I think that there's something about collecting books that are beautiful, that share your interests, that inspire and make, like, prompt some sort of fresh thought. I just think it's a beautiful thing to collect and to have in your life. And we want to show you a few that we've gotten recently.
When I was in high school, there was this one family that every time you go over to their house, they had coffee table books neatly positioned in places, but they weren't just books for show. There was a family that actually used them, and I remember thinking, when I'm a big adult, I'm gonna do that too. And that's kind of how it started, thinking about it. But I think you can talk yourself out of coffee table books because they're not a paperback, and they're not necessarily the most inexpensive thing, although there are always ways that you can find and set alerts to find books.
That's what used bookstores are for, and it's so much fun browsing and finding things.
It really is. So we just began collecting books and incorporating them into our lives. In fact, it started off where there was this huge warehouse sale where there were all these books, coffee table books, really inexpensive, and I needed a table. So we stacked them up. I did read them, cookbooks, travel books, etc. And I stacked them up, bought a round glass and put them on top, and that we used that for years
as the side tables around couches. They were wonderful and felt like such a true expression of us and our family and the things that we loved, and it was such a cool way of having furniture.
So finding coffee table books, like Janelle was mentioning, it's a great hobby to start looking at antique stores or used bookstores, or frankly, just invest in books. Who cares? At the end of the day, this is kind of my philosophy. Will you really miss the $40 to $50?
Or $20?
Probably not. So sometimes it's good to just treat yourself to a good coffee table book. So you want to see what we're reading these days?
So what we tend to do, because we're always collecting things, and I love buying coffee table books for people for presents, because I think there's something, it makes gift buying really easy, because you know someone is really interested in a thing, and you can always find beautiful books about that thing, or maybe they love an author, or they love a stylist or a designer or a person that has an interest, or a cookbook, and I think it makes a really thoughtful gift. So we're always giving each other books. So the ones we're going to share with you are not necessarily our favorite of all time. They're ones we've gotten recently and are currently on our actual coffee table,
because we're reading them.
Yeah, and I love rotating them out, so that when we get a few in, we'll keep them on the table for a few months or for a while, and then we'll rotate them out. They'll end up in the studio, and then we'll have new ones, and it's sort of this ongoing rotating collection of the things that we're currently inspired by. And sometimes in the morning when I'm sitting with my coffee, I'll flip them through them and get some ideas, or just get a little burst of serotonin when I'm looking through a new book. I just think it's a really fun way of filling your life.
So one that Janelle just gave me recently that I'm in love with, in fact, I put it in the weekly digest as a recommendation because it's a beautiful book, and it's called Collective Wisdom, Lessons, Inspiration, and Advice for Women Over 50. There's another one for not 50-year-olds, but because of this, you know, when Janelle gave this to me, there's something when you give a book to somebody that captures them. It's like she saw me, and that made the gift all the more meaningful to be seen.
Aww.
Because there's something about saying, I see you.
Yeah.
And this is a book I think you'll treasure. And this has been one that is awesome. I just go through it, read through it. I've read through it actually a couple of times because I find something different and inspiration from really cool women and women who are just, I don't want to say average, but people who you don't necessarily know.
They're not necessarily famous, but they're in different fields and different spaces.
So it's a great collection item. So I love this book.
I think there are different kinds of coffee table books. Obviously, there are books that are mainly, photographs and maybe they're highlighting spaces or whatever. This one is actually interviews with different women in different fields. And so it's a little bit more meaty. It's actually, you're reading the book, but there's something really lovely about just flipping through and hearing about someone's experience in a way that you haven't before. And I love this too because I feel like we're constantly talking to women that, are in different phases of their life and maybe they've opted out for different reasons, and being able to look at all of these beautiful stories, it's just good to fill your life with those things.
It is.
So the one that I've been into lately, we've been really building out this studio space on the top floor of this house that we've been living in together. And so I've been looking a lot for inspiration of different studios and how different women have made their studios and different artists. And so this is a really beautiful book that's just called Studio. And so it's just studio porn. It's just photos and experiences of different kinds of studios and how people build up their working spaces. I'm just really interested in how different kinds of creative people fill their spaces and make spaces that they can really work in. And I've just been getting so much out of it. I just love it.
It is beautiful. Next up is The Maverick Soul. This was a part of my birthday gift from Janelle, and the next one is also. And this book surprised me because I didn't know anything about it. And because she knows me, she said, Mom, I think you're gonna like this book. And sure enough, I have. It's a coffee table book, yes, but the best coffee table books are full of beautiful inspiration and great copy. And the author who put together this book is an amazing writer. And I find in my quiet times in the morning, I'll pick it up. You can see where I left off. I have a little toothpick here. And I'll just wake up and read it because the writing is so good, but the pictures are too. And there's inspiration about people. So it's a beautiful book. I'm grateful for it. And when I finish it, I'll probably put it somewhere else. But I think that's a great way to discover books that you're reading because we have a video on falling back in love with reading, and one of the tricks of that is that you have multiple styles of books scattered throughout your home, and this is one of them that I find great inspiration. But I'm going to take my time through it. When it's done, it'll probably go on a bookshelf and won't be on the cookbook on our coffee table because I'll probably be getting something else. But this is a great book. Next up is a book inspired by our documentary club,
which is another video that you can learn all about what we've been doing this year.
So Janelle had this documentary club that she wanted us to watch as a group, and it was very inspirational. I can't remember the title.
It was called Finding Vivian Mears.
Finding Vivian Mears. I didn't memorize the title.
It's okay.
But it's about this nanny that actually took a buttload of photos of her charges in the 40s
and 50s in Chicago. A guy bid in an auction for a box full of negatives because he was looking for some archival footage, and he found a whole treasure trove in a storage unit full of this woman's photographs and negatives, thousands of photos that she took over the course of 30 years of being a nanny in Chicago, over the course of several decades, documenting the changing landscape of the area and just getting really into street photography. It was incredible.
We'll link the video. So
amazing documentary. You should definitely go watch it. And no one, she never showed anyone her work. She kept everything in a storage unit, and then she died. So this guy got obsessed with trying to find who she was and what the story was and developing all of her artwork, and in the process discovered that she was an amazing photographer.
She has a great eye.
And so now the photography books have gone around the world, and then they've done exhibits in museums and galleries all around the world of her photography based on this search.
And this will probably be a book that will stay on our coffee table long term, even though I'm not gonna always be reading it, because this kind of a book is perfect to have for your guests.
Yeah.
Say you're still cooking, and you're invited people for dinner and you're still doing something, you can suggest to somebody to take a look at a photo book, because like honestly, it's beautiful, supremely beautiful, so interesting to just flip through. So this will probably live on our coffee table book.
And then the last one is me being a little bit nerdy. I really love it. First off, I'm not gonna lie, I think that there's something about coffee table books that are just beautiful and look really good. So there's that. But also for our anniversary this year, my husband, who knows me very well, got me this book, and it was a small little indie printing. It was self-published. It was a Kickstarter campaign of a guy who just really loves map making and like making like fantasy style maps of real places. And so it's called The Lord of Maps, and he went through and made real places, so every state and a lot of countries and cities and different places in the style of like a Lord of the Rings style fantasy map in the tradition of the old map makers, and I just love it. I think it's just fun and it's beautiful. And if you know me at all, you know I love globes and maps and any sort of wayfinding thing. And I just think it's a really fun addition to our coffee table that is a whole other thing, and it goes into my nerdiness. So it makes me happy, and I love this cover very much.
But again, that's a great illustration of a book that if you have a guest over and they're feeling a little bored, or sometimes you have introverted guests and they just need something when there's conversation going all over, and if you hand them that book, then it gives them something to do that is beautiful. So if you have a couple like that are not like word heavy, but picture heavy and kind of interesting, they make great fodder to use when guests come over to your house. Or like seriously, books are for us to enjoy.
So those are the 5 that we've collected recently. If you like this, let us know. We've got gobs more that we'll pull off of our shelves and do it again. And I love just highlighting the things that we've been finding recently. Another great way of doing that is in the digest that we do every week. We are constantly recommending books and documentaries and movies and cool things. But every time that either of us find a cool book that we like, we love recommending them in the digest. So if you want to know more of what we're reading, that's the best place to do it. So sign up and you can get all of our current recommendations.